Well, World Youth Day is happening this week in Lisbon, Portugal, and the church is alive with young adults celebrating their faith. But what about those who have fallen away? Our guests tonight minister to those struggling with their children or family members walking away from the Catholic Church. Patti Maguire Armstrong and Roxane Beauclair Salonen are the co-authors of What Would Monica Do? Consolation, Hope, and Inspiration in the Spirit of St. Monica for those bearing the cross of a loved one who is away from the faith. Patti Maguire Armstrong is the author of several books, including Holy Hacks and the Amazing Grace series from Ascension Press. She writes for publications such as the National Catholic Register, has received several top awards from the National Catholic Press Association for her work. She's also the TV host of Ladies of Another View in North Dakota. Co-author Roxane Beauclair Salonen is an award-winning children's author and freelance writer. She's also a Catholic radio host, speaker, and regularly contributes to CatholicMom.com, the National Catholic Register, and Embodied magazine. Welcome back to the Busted Halo Show, Patti and Roxane. Welcome back. How are you guys?
Great. Thanks, Father Dave. We're doing well.
Well, it's World Youth Day week, so we probably should start off talking about, because we've talked about your book before, but maybe if we've got some new listeners or people that are less than fully familiar with all of the saints of the Catholic Church, why do you have St. Monica in the title of your book? Tell us about her.
I think one of the things we could say first of all, and then I'll let Patti take over. I just want to say one thing about St. Monica. She was a mother who loved her children. That's the best thing we can say about St. Monica, because any of us parents that have children love our children and want the best for them, and we want them to get to heaven.
And St. Monica is our role model. We start out by explaining that a lot of people might think like, oh, she lived in the 4th century. What does she have to do to share us, 4th and 5th century? But in reality, she had a son that went away to school, came back with a girlfriend and a baby out of wedlock. He got involved in a newfangled, new age type religion, and her husband was not Christian, not Catholic. Mm-hmm. So she had to deal with a lot of the situations that we see in today's world. And a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people know she prayed for her son, St. Augustine, who became one of the greatest saints, in all of Christendom. Everybody recognizes him because it was before the church split. But she had 2 other kids who never left the faith. So we're kind of in that situation. We have kids that are still in the faith, but it's the ones that strayed away. You have 99 and Jesus went after that one that strayed. We want 100% score on this one.
100%. He wants all of them. And as you're pointing out, those 2 kids that didn't stray away from the faith versus their brother, St. Augustine. Right now, there's probably a good amount of folks listening to our show who this week will be seeing images and hearing audio and seeing video from World Youth Day happening in Lisbon, Portugal. The Pope will be there. They'll see a lot of shots of young people going, yay, love the faith. Here comes the Eucharist and the Holy Father. And maybe going through some of their minds is, boy, I wish that was my kid.
Absolutely. And we all have that little zing to the heart when things like that happen. We're human, right? And there is a grief that we're going through and a letting go and trying to reframe things, looking at things from the eternal perspective. But initially it's hard because we want those good things for our children. We want them to experience those things. We want the grace to be flowing in their life. And it is really hard when they don't have that. And we know that maybe some of them are suffering and struggling through life, and we're kind of at the end of our debate time where we can't really give them that. We just have to listen, bite our tongue a lot, and pray, fast, and hope, I guess, are some of the things that we can do.
Okay.
I want to add that one thing we can do is, even if it maybe kind of rubs salt into our wound, pray for those young people. We want them to keep the faith. They are probably praying for us. They're praying for our children. Absolutely. Anybody going to World Youth Day, they're praying for the other people in their generation to be back in the faith too. Everybody wants that. So recognize that they're praying for us. Let's pray for them and their safety. And plus any kind of pain that happens because we feel sad that our kids aren't there, offer that up. Offer that up for our children. Don't waste it. That good can come from it while we pray and sacrifice, but offer up any kind of suffering that's caused. And because we don't want to, even if we're tempted to envy or jealousy, we have to immediately recognize that's happening to us and stop and pray.
Patti Maguire Armstrong and Roxane Beauclair Salonen are our guests here on the Busted Halo Show. Their book is called What Would Monica Do? Consolation, Hope, and Inspiration in the Spirit of St. Monica for those bearing the cross of a loved one who is away from the faith. I'm so glad that in the book you guys addressed, sorry, from New York, so call people guys. I know you're not guys.
No problem.
Didn't even notice.
Women's, you all, I'll just go with the Southern, you all. I'm glad that you addressed this because so many times when people come up to me as a priest, almost immediately after the piece about my son or daughter or my grandkids or whatever aren't practicing the faith, very often that turns to guilt. Where did I go wrong? And you guys really address the regret and second guessing yourself in your book.
Yeah. Before I go there, I was thinking about something earlier when you were talking that, we hear about Saint Augustine. We don't hear about his siblings, right? I have a feeling if he was born now and living now, he probably wouldn't be going to World Youth Day.
Right,
Guess what? Who's the one that we know about, right? Because transformation, conversion, metanoia, those are all things of the Christian faith. And so it's some of those wild guys that go off and do the party thing or whatever they're doing out there. When they come back, they're a powerful force. And so I just think to just always have the hope that they will in fact come back and to pray in advance as if they already have, to thank God in advance, like Blessed Solanus Casey. So what was the question again?
Oh, yes, she answered the other one now.
Yeah, I was still on that one.
You were focused. No, I mean, you know this, and I'm sure people have come up to you and have that sort of guilt or regret. Where did I go wrong?
I always thought when my kids were little, I thought, why do parents ask that? Parents that were a little bit older and they were saying, where did I go wrong? And I thought, well, it's not your fault. Like I could see it from my younger self, but then when it started happening to me, you do wonder. And, Patty and I addressed that there is kind of a reflection that happens as we're trying to sort through this, because I think it took a lot of parents by storm and by surprise. I mean, there really is a kind of a tsunami right now. It's more than probably almost any time in history because of the factors involved, like the internet and just different forces. And unlike back when St. Monica was trying to convince her son to come back to Christianity, she was leaving a pagan world. We're entering a pagan world. We're leaving, it's kind of a post-Christian world right now. So we kind of have a mirror situation there. Yeah. We have a lot in front of us, but, and we can forgive. We can ask for forgiveness for our kids for anything we've done wrong. We can take that moral inventory. We can go to confession for anything and clean out the cobwebs and try to sort through things. But ultimately, when our kids are adults, that hopefully they understand that we're human and we did the best that we could and we'll continue to do the best we can. We can only really deal with today anyway. God is in the present. And so, yes, we can take that moral inventory and try to kind of make good on that. But then we move forward. We don't stay stuck in that place. We move forward in hope and trying to see each other, I guess, as human beings with free will, and we want to give the best to them.
I'd like to share too that there's a lot of priests in our diocese whose parents didn't even go to mass, that weren't practicing. One priest, his parents divorced, one became Lutheran, and the other one just, was a couch potato, didn't do anything. So we can look at all the things we did wrong, but then we can do that, and we can go to confession. Let's confess all our failings, but then we have to move on. And it might be something we have to continually remind ourselves of because it's easy to beat ourselves up. But one of our chapters is worry is not a prayer. And we have a chapter on forgiveness. And one of the things we have to do is forgive ourselves. And what went wrong with Adam and Eve? Because they had a perfect father and they didn't listen to him. So we have to stop thinking we're the end all and be all, and realize that we can do our best and we should do our best, be sorry, confess for the things that we have failed on. But in the end, we have to surrender our children to God. They have free will and we can't control the situation. And there are wonderful Catholics. There are amazing priests whose parents didn't even go to mass. And then you have parents that went to mass every day and their kids are atheists. So, we got to be a little bit careful here and move on and start putting our trust in God and really surrender. This is an opportunity to surrender in a bigger way than we probably did beforehand. And it's a good position to be in because it has humbled us. And we know that the road to sainthood begins with humility. And God can do way more for them than we can. So now we pour our prayers and our sacrifices, we pour everything into our faith and surrendering our kids to God.
Well, and certainly another way to look at it would be that the parents' role now, maybe the parents' role from like 0 to 18 was thus and so, and sending them to church and Catholic school and all that. And now the role is praying for them, because at this point there's not a lot you're going to say or do that's probably, most likely, statistically, that's going to change that. But prayer, we believe prayer is effectual. And the other thing I said, when you just now, Patty, you mentioned humility, I think sometimes people will get stuck in what's more of a false humility about blaming themselves or second guessing, when really you kind of want to say, and I usually don't say this in the moment when somebody's kind of upset, but it's not about you. You know, so to focus on you in this situation is not helpful. And not, you know, should I have forced them to go on that retreat in 8th grade, or, you know, that sort of thing. The really, one of the things they train us in seminary is to work against the Messiah complex. That it's like God is in charge, Jesus is the Messiah, not any of us. And to figure out, like, what could I do more, what should I have done, or what could I do, is kind of taking, you know, the role of God away from God. We're not God.
Absolutely. And kind of bringing it back around to the World Youth Day aspect. We can pray for those people, those young people, because they might influence our child, right? Because at this point, we're praying for other people to step into the path of our children. So what a hopeful thing to know that there are young people on fire for their faith. And those are the very young people that could be influencing our child much more than we can. How can we do it? We can do it by staying strong, by keeping our own faith intact, by developing our own relationship to God. In fact, I would say, I don't know, personally for me and my husband, we have become more faithful as a couple. Our children wandering away has brought us together. Our marriage has been strengthened because it was a heartache that we shared, and we had to come together and ask God for help for us to get through this. And I just think it's an opportunity for our own faith to deepen. If everything had worked out, I don't know, we might have let go and said, hey, job well done. But now God has humbled us, and we have to kind of go, okay, maybe not. Maybe there's still more work to do in their souls, but how about our own?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my husband and I pray the rosary together every night, and so we have some other prayers, and he goes off to church many times right before 3 o'clock to pray the Chaplet of Mercy. And we were growing in our faith, and we would go to daily mass even before this happened. But we were kind of patting ourselves on the back too, because we were doing such a great job raising our kids. And you know what? When you do a good job raising your kids Catholic, they respond, they flourish, they love it. So it's a shock later on when some of them leave, because you're like, what just happened here? They understood everything. They loved the faith. And then you really become humbled because you thought you were doing such a great job. And like you say, it wasn't all about us, and they have free will, and the world, you know, the cultural winds are blowing strong. And, you know, sometimes they even get the parents, because we have seen over and over where, you know, parents that go to same-sex supposed weddings, and they kind of go by the wayside because they're following their kids, and they're saying, well, we love our kids, they're good. And then they start to get more critical of the church. So we included in the book a friend of ours that we both know, who had 8 kids, and 2 are just amazing. They have big families, they homeschool their kids, and but then some of the other ones don't go to mass. And one, same-sex attracted, believed he got married to another guy, and that didn't work out. But she really demonstrates through her story how she loves him so much, and he loves her, and he comes to her, but she stays strong in her faith. And she says, son, what you're looking for is Jesus. He will never let you down. He's the piece that you're missing in your life. Because I know another parent whose son was in the seminary, dropped out, got into a same-sex relationship, and the mother turned on the church in the end. And so it's not just about our kids falling away. We have to not fall away, because there's so many opportunities where we can start to slack off.
Yeah. Well, we were talking with Patti Maguire Armstrong and Roxane Beauclair Salonen about their book, What Would Monica Do? Consolation, Hope, and Inspiration in the Spirit of St. Monica for those bearing the cross of a loved one who is away from the faith. You do, throughout the book, you focus a lot on hope. I would imagine it will be very hopeful to see the visuals and hear the sights and sounds of World Youth Day this week in Lisbon, Portugal. What are some things when people approach you, maybe they've read the book or maybe not, they know of your work or on your TV show that you have, Patti, when people approach you, what are ways in which you offer hope for situations like this?
I think one of the things,
Go ahead, Roxane, I'll follow you.
one of the things I think is just to keep loving your children, keep inviting them into your home, keep having feasts and celebrating life together, keep making room for conversation, be interested in their life. But I think if we just keep it really simple and love them and try not to criticize, because they are facing a very tough world. It's easy to, again, make it about ourselves, but we're kind of in a tough spot, but also to gather with other people. I think that's really important. Patti and I started a Facebook group called Catholic Parents, What Would Monica Do? We're up to almost 2,000
great.
people that are sharing this cross with us. So I think being able to share this grief with others is really important. And that's why we wrote the book.
And two things we mentioned in the book is, first of all, when St. Monica would ask bishops and wanted somebody to somehow have that conversation with her son to set him straight. Like, you send your kids articles or you have these conversations and you think you're going to get through to them. And for some reason you don't. But she talked to St. Ambrose, who was a bishop and who became very instrumental in the conversion of St. Augustine. And he told her, talk less to your son about God and more to God about your son. Because when they don't listen, now is your time. And that's really the message of St. Monica, is now we go deeper in our own faith. We are not helpless. There are things we can do. And I listened to Father Gershel. He used to have a Sunday night TV show, and I only ever listened. I had it on 10 minutes, maybe when I was getting ready to go somewhere. And it was on agnostics and atheists. And somebody called in and they were praying for somebody. And they said, I've been praying for years and I have not seen one little bit of movement. I don't see where my prayers are doing any good. And he told them, God will administer the graces at which time they will do the greatest amount of good. And I thought, wow, that's it. That's it. We don't give God a deadline. We don't decide I've said this many prayers and something should start happening now. It might be on their deathbed. And we have to really completely surrender. And Roxane and I have a very beloved novena. I mean, even when we're not saying the novena, the 10 times you say, Jesus, I surrender myself to you, take care of everything. And that is basically what we're doing. And so in the book, we have other people's stories. We have happy ending stories. We have ongoing stories. Some of these ongoing stories have already turned into happy ending stories. So we know that Jesus is their savior, that our prayers count, our prayers and sacrifices, that we're journeying along together, and we can celebrate all those young adults at World Youth Day, because who knows where some of them came from. They didn't all just arrive as great Catholics. A lot of them have their own stories. So we just have to accept it's an ongoing story and keep putting our trust in God.
And a lot of them have been dragged there by their friends or their youth minister, and it's going to happen over the next 4 days. And many of them might even have vocations to the priesthood or religious life over the next 4 days. So absolutely, we've got to pray for them. We're going to put a link up on our radio blog. That's where people know to go when the show's over and they want to find out more, bustedhalo.com/radio. We'll put a link to not only the book, but the Facebook group if people want to join your Facebook group, and some of the other resources we've been talking about, the novena maybe, all that. So bustedhalo.com/radio if you want to, if this seems like this would be a helpful resource for you. What would Monica do? Consolation, hope, and inspiration in the spirit of St. Monica for those bearing the cross of a loved one who is away from the faith. Patti Maguire Armstrong and Roxane Beauclair Salonen, thanks so much for joining us here on the Busted Halo Show.
Thank you, Father Dave. God bless you.
Take care.